Okay, so good morning, everyone. In the next interview in our series, today I have the opportunity to host an exceptional guest, Mr. Daniel Starr, the Managing Director at TDJ Pitango Ventures. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Arkadiusz. Very glad to be here.
During the pandemic, can we see any changes in the sector of financing startups and startups themselves? Can we spot the new trends?
Yes, actually, there were several things that have changed significantly. The first one is on the investor side, the VCs, because of the, I would say, prediction or expectation that it's going to be somewhat more difficult to raise money for the portfolio. The VCs, I would talk for about ourselves, but I believe it's quite general. That we try to first and foremost strengthen the portfolio, which means ensure that the companies have at least 2, maybe 2.5 years of runway, so they will not be left without money and without the ability to raise in good terms or quickly. So we focused, first of all, we focus on strengthening our own portfolio. And it means participating in rounds, initiating rounds of funding if possible. But that's pretty much underway or almost completed. So now we have our focus again on the outside, so we can start looking again at companies. I mean, we did look at companies all along, but definitely the priority was on the portfolio. And we believe this explains the slowdown that is in the market all over the world in terms of VCs putting money. But it's only a temporary thing, a temporary measure, and we should get back to normal in terms of funding. Now, in terms of, there are changes actually in areas of what is being funded, because companies that are definitely companies that have immediate application for the solving the pandemic have priority by the market. I mean, the market actually prefers to do that. Governments and public institutions are also encouraging this kind of business. So this is the number one thing. But beyond that, which is more important, is what will change after the pandemic. And of course, the pandemic is going to be with us for, unfortunately, a long time. But there is a new normal being that happens, and nobody knows what it is. If somebody comes with a prediction, you should not believe it because nobody knows. But there are areas that are more beneficial than others. I think the area of sustainability, for example, received a big push forward. The areas of course, tele something, medicine, learning, meetings, analytics that done from remote are actually more important than before. Some of these market actually got a kick forward by 2 or even 3 years just because of the pandemic. This is the good thing. And on the other side, you are areas that are less favorable. Like if you have a company that is built upon doing business with commercial real estate, perhaps this is not a good time. The same if you're based up yourself on animal agriculture, because this is an area which is going down quite quickly. So there are some areas that are pluses and minuses, and we are all very eager to see how the new normal will stabilize.
So can we assume that, for example, medical sector, the sector of medical equipment would be the more interesting sector during that time for the VCs?
It's going to be one of them. Yes, it's going to be interesting, one of them, especially if there is a possibility of diagnosing or treating without direct contact. And I mean, the benefit of that goes far beyond the pandemic, far beyond the COVID-19, because there are rural areas all over the world that were in a disadvantage vis-a-vis medical, receiving medical treatments or the medical support. And with the telemedicine, the trend towards doing remotely what you before needed to do face to face, actually there is a lot of benefits in that area. But this is also true for other areas. For example, in education and learning, there is no need for a student to rent an expensive flat anymore in some place. Maybe they can share for a day or two a week, and all the rest can be done remotely from their original places. And transportation, for example. This is an area where I would say the traffic jams and the need for being there all the time created a lot of pressure on the transportation systems, on the roads and cars and all that. And the people are voting with their legs, literally, staying where they want to be and carrying out their activities from remote. And this has a direct impact, for example, on companies that would do on-demand transportation, like DRT. You call the bus and you order the bus on your phone. And if there is no people ordering the bus, and no point in having 44 empty spaces moving around town. Things like that, and there are many, many, many examples like that. Yeah.
So we can predict that the VCs are going to open the new rounds for such ideas?
Yes, it's already happening. Actually, already happening. Let me give you an example. For example, coming from the US. Okay, in the US, in the last, I would say, 5 years or 4 years, there was a big trend for plant-based proteins. Plant-based meat and Beyond Meat and Impossible and all that. What happened during the last 6 months is that some of these companies moved from a plant-based hamburger product to a platform for sustainability products. So there is a big difference. People start to look at companies like Beyond Meat in the same way they looked at Amazon many years ago. Like they are a platform because they have the constituency, like the customers that are sustainable in mind. And so they are sustainable companies are actually using this or trying to use this as a platform for pushing their products. And there is no, this is like 1 or 2 steps from having a sustainable platform that will do that. And of course, you have a lot of issues about it. And, we don't go into details now, but things are happening big time. And the investment community is actually realigning on that. I mean, people can say, yes, there were some changes and everybody's going to go back to normal, but we don't see that happening. We see shifts that are quite, making their indents for quite a long time.
So the pandemic gave an additional attention from the investors and also the startups for the specific industries, yes?
Yes, exactly. There were some verticals that got favored and a tremendous catalyzed forward, and some others that are kind of relegated to wait and see what happens. Yeah. I mean, I don't see how you could make a huge investment right now in a fossil fuel company, or in a company that would be promoting oil and gas. I mean, this is not happening, right? And also how, I mean, Zoom has been around for a long time and never caught people's attention. Yeah, people were using it, and now it's becoming, a way of life, like your cell phone. So there are things that are actually moving from backstage to front, and things that are moving from front to back. Okay.
Yeah, especially we can see it at our project when we are making interviews, and we do it remotely. Like we are currently in Israel, we are currently in Warsaw, and we can meet each other and exchange our ideas.
Yes, one interesting thing that happened is with this remote communication is that it changed a lot of things. Some of them for the best, and some of them not so good. But for example, it turns out that the people that have some handicaps or some are actually benefiting from this because they don't have to travel to places. They don't have to deal with how they look like on a wheelchair or using crutches. And also, you only see the face. So if there are some, or sort of, and so if there are some areas of the body that the person is not so proud, they don't have to show it. And it actually, I saw reports that people got with disabilities got got more democratized. Like they get they in court much easily. Also, I found out that there are some interesting statistics in the US that female CEOs have actually managed to raise more money during pandemic than way more money than before. One of the reasons for that is that when you have a Zoom call, you start, you do the Zoom, and you end. In the previous regime, you would have a period of social activity that could be good, but in many cases was not so good, because tended to defocus the team from the actual product or the actual company that we're looking into other trivial matters that did not benefit women when you had had them chit chat before the call or after the call. So it's surprising. I mean, it's something that you didn't expect, but yeah.
So the conversations became more technocratic.
Actually, more direct to the point. More direct to the
more
point.
Substance.
Yes, and need to do that's why some companies are having some time to do coffees over Zoom. So they say, at 3:30 every afternoon, everybody meets on Zoom for no particular purpose, just to chat. Okay.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any Israeli experiences, like the specific Israeli experiences in that case?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. The Israeli companies took they are very experienced in dealing with crises. Many of them, this is not the first crisis. There was the big financial crash, and there was before the dot-com bust in the 2000, and there was before. So many of the entrepreneurs, they are very experienced in dealing with crises. And the actual sentiment is that most of the great companies that today were born in crises. And so this was the time where if you manage to survive and get your message across, then you have good chances. And this is not surprising because many other companies will just drop out at that time. So you have less competition for the same dollars. So the being knowledgeable did what most companies did is immediately upon lockdowns and the crisis becoming evident, they reduce burn rate. They make sure they have enough money to survive. They focus a lot on their core business, like they dropped some side things that they were doing. But also, more importantly, the fact that the managers didn't have to travel so much. They didn't lose half the week in just hanging out in airports and lobby and and lounges and stuff. They just worked, so they were a lot more productive. So they continued business as usual. And the other thing is support the employees' desires. Like employees immediately work from home, support the heck out of that. Assure they have delivery of food to homes. They have some, give them the systems, if they need a computer at home or a big screen or a better internet or some other means, make sure the employees have the means to be productive. And this is an area where it increased a little spending. And always be in a position to listen to what's happening. Like if the employees, it turns out that hours of work were deeply changed because you have, let's say, young employees that have no children or family. They were pretty much available at the same time or at any time you wanted. But employees with kids were not really available during the normal work hours. So they prefer to get up early, put in a good 3-4 hours before the house wakes up. And after things calm down, if they calm down, then you can put another more. So they actually, employees with families tend to work at the edges, like at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And actually, this was very good because a lot of their customers were in the US and in China. So from a time zone, it worked very well. There were people always in the time zone of the customers. and I can tell you many other anecdotes about that. So there is a lot of things that did happen. The most important thing is keep doing the business. Do not slow down. Ensure there is money. Connect very tightly with your employees, and do not lose contact with customers. The other thing that happened was, this was not predicted, customers became more available. So instead of planning for, okay, let's meet in New York. So you have to plan and it takes 2 weeks and all that. You can just have a Zoom call tomorrow morning or this afternoon, and people were generally available. So availability of contacts became more available, became more evident. Yeah.
So we stick more to the technology, which was present before, but we are using it more frequently because of that situation.
Exactly. And there was in general very good will of people to kind of, to move and be helpful, because the situation was tough enough for everybody. So people became what's nice, people became nicer.
Daniel, you're building the big, beautiful innovation bridge between Israel and Poland. And could you tell us from your experience what can be implemented more the Israeli experience in the startup innovation sector and environment in Poland?
Yeah, okay. First of all, let's tell you what are the areas that Poland does not need help. Okay, the areas that are working well. Polish entrepreneurs are very dynamic. They really, very committed. They're focused. They know what they want to do. Not always have all the knowledge and experience to do it, but they know where the end goal is, where they want to get it. The product and technology is really superior. This comes from the education system. This comes from the experience. The areas where Polish entrepreneurs and managers will need help is, first of all, become more aggressive, meaning try to target larger and larger areas of the world. It's already happening. The entrepreneur that is happy with selling in Poland and maybe CEE, these days are long gone. The Polish entrepreneur knows that the world is flat, and in order to succeed, company needs to be global. The question is how to do it and how to scale globally. This is an area that help is needed. What we try to do in our fund is, for every company that we invest, we try to bring to the company people from the Pitango or the Israeli ecosystem that have had experience in companies like it or similar or with similar attributes, so that when the CEO, the Polish CEO of the company, is confronted with a dilemma, with a question, with a, do I need to go right or need to go left? Do I need to go forward or backward? Do I need to go? Do you need to paint it in yellow or in blue? Okay, so normally for the Polish entrepreneurs, this will be the first time that he or she gets this commercial dilemma, commercial question. For an Israeli entrepreneur, this would be like the time number 4 or time number 5. So there are so it brings I would say experience that says, okay, this worked in the past and this did not work in the past. So it's the ability to coach and mentor the Polish entrepreneur throughout the decisions trees is actually a major, I would say, value that we bring to our portfolio. And of course, people that know how to reach to the markets to get customers and get the right business model in place, the right go-to-market strategies. All of that requires experience. And somebody made a comment that Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, it took them 50 years to become global and world-class. So they started in the 1950s, and by the year 2000, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs were, quite effective and quite good. Israeli entrepreneurs had the benefit of copying Silicon Valley. A lot of them were personally in the Valley, had friends, they had relocation, they moved forward. So if you count statistics, Israeli entrepreneurs took them 25 years, half the time, to reach the same point. So we are actually very hopeful that Polish entrepreneurs will take them 12 and a half years to do that by copying the Israeli model. And let me tell you that we are well along that area. Several years have passed. So the 12 and a half has, it's already, long counting.
So we can say that Israel, because of that interconnectivity of the entrepreneurs, implemented the ideas and the business model of the Silicon Valley, and we are trying to do the same thing with Israel and Poland, yes?
Exactly the same thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. There was an event in New York a few months ago where entrepreneurs from all over the world came to like a funding contest where 1,000 companies came in and made their pitches, and some got they met VCs and some met money. The statistic of that event is that companies from Israel were 50% more successful than companies from the US in raising money in the US. So this is basically a situation which kind of a little bit of an overshoot, but it's a situation that can be replicated and can be replicated in Poland. And especially as the Polish entrepreneurs are a little bit more hungry, they're more, they want to succeed. And and this is an area that can work out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, we are approaching to the end of our time, but do you have some ending remarks for the young entrepreneurs, some advices from them?
Yes. Okay. Definitely. You have an idea. Make sure you focus on the solution, to one problem which is big enough, large enough to attract interest from customers. Do not try to do this and that and this other thing and this third thing and 5 things at the same time. If you have some previous business, you have to basically take care of them in some other way. You cannot personally do that. You have to move to the startup 100% of the time, because you're going to be there 150% of the time. Okay. And there's no time for other things. Make sure you pick an area which is interesting, and try to be what we call category leader, meaning even if you're not the leader, the company is not the leader today. Maybe there is a different company in the world that is already doing something along the same lines. Make sure you understand how you can leapfrog and overtake that and become the number one player in the world. Because if you look at the return, if you look at exits and M&As, only the number one and number two in the world count. All the rest get basically the little crumbs, the leftovers. Okay, so you have to be number one or number two. And if you are not really unique, you don't have a really unique proposition at the onset, then it's going to be very, very difficult to clinch that, to get money. The whole thing becomes more and more difficult. So try to be number one, maybe number two with aspirations for number one is a good idea too. And try to get on your bus as many people that could complement you. The stuff that you don't know how to do well, to do, and this is what we are here to basically help our portfolio with.
Okay, so thank you for your advices and a great conversation. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Arkadiusz. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.